and good afternoon. This is Midday Live, the Saturday edition. We're live on DSTV channel 279. We're also streaming worldwide on the internet via 3news.com. We always get interactive with you out there on our various social media platforms. My name is Solis Rose Boakye. Good afternoon once again. Let's head on and find out what will be in the headlines today. Now, President Akufo-Addo appoints 3 persons to act as chief executives and 10 others as deputies for 3 development authorities. Now, Chief Justice's push to make alternative dispute resolution mandatory receives backing. Also coming up this afternoon, Gender Ministry disassociates itself from a CNN interview that has gone viral. And on the foreign front of this afternoon, the US, UK and France bomb multiple government targets in Syria. Well, many thanks for staying with us. Don't forget, you can always send your views and comments via social media platforms. And let's do our first story, which is currently trending. And the judiciary is considering making alternative disputes resolution mandatory for civil disputes before trial. Now, if this becomes operational, litigants can no longer seek court trial of civil cases until all avenues of resolving the matter have failed. Now, this was revealed by the Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Justice Sophia Akufo, at the launch of Boakye and Co. Alternative Disputes Resolution Center in Accra.
Ghana's justice system is perceived to be slow, expensive and sometimes too cumbersome to access. That notwithstanding, people still flock the courts at a much higher rate than before, a situation that has put pressure on the civil litigation system, leading to cases being stretched and delayed. Various reforms to address the situation have not yielded much to enhance justice delivery in the country. The Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Sophia Akufo, is suggesting that litigants adopt the alternative dispute resolution ADR mechanisms. Citing the sports sector as an example, she was worried this year's Premier League was delayed because one of the parties went to court over a matter that an ADR mechanism could have easily addressed.
In the light of these experiences, we are considering making ADR, even in the courts, mandatory for all civil disputes before they come to trial. I have made it clear to all the civil trial judges that in evaluating performance, we're not just going to count how many judgments you wrote, but we're going to look at the methodology, how many cases you were able to settle before it even came to trial.
This, she believes, would ease the pressure on the courts and enhance justice delivery.
When parties begin to use ADR to resolve their civil disputes, then the courts can concentrate on delivering quality judgments on issues of rights and criminality and constitutionalism. The judges will not feel pressured by the time and other factors and will be afforded more time to deliver decisions after making adequate research and developing enough familiarity with the case.
The Chief Justice, in launching the Boakye and Co. ADR Center, was hopeful the center would add to the options available to parties who have disputes. She advised the management and staff to uphold high professional standards and avoid conflict of interest as much as possible. Chairman of the Boakye and Co. ADR Center, Austin Boakye, said the center would leverage on the experiences over the years, focusing on new developments and harness potentials of trained practitioners as a center of choice.
This center has been put together to fill in that gap. We have a very unique 5-stage process using the pulse. And within 90 minutes, after the pre-meeting, you should be able to resolve your differences. It has always worked like that. If the case is a very notable case, then they will negotiate the fees. But a case between you and your husband, God forbid, can be resolved sometimes pro bono, sometimes with very little cost to take care of administrative things.
The center, he said, will deploy online dispute resolution tools with the assurance of providing the best security and confidentiality for parties.
Well, meanwhile, a former Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Alhaji Inusa Fuseni, has backed the Chief Justice to make mandatory for all civil cases to go through alternative dispute resolution before trial. Take a listen.
Even in our cultural settings, when there is a dispute, they try to promote a win-win. What is it that you can give? What is it that you can take? That will bring cordiality, that will amicably resolve the dispute, instead of the adversarial system that we have. And in civil matters where the amounts are not that involved, where the issues are not so complicated, it's important to use ADR so that the courts will not be congested.
Now, in an event where it's become mandatory, it's not an option, how would you think it would affect, for instance, people who might have a civil case but do not want that option?
No, if it becomes mandatory, it means there will be no options.
Yes.
Now, so we have to tune our psyche, our minds, to the fact that in this my matter, it's a civil case, it's a case that is amenable to ADR, and so I'm going to ADR. And immediately we begin turning our attention to the fact that there are processes that you have to go through in ADR. We will begin to refine those processes to meet the reasonable and legitimate expectations of people who will be using that mechanism to resolve their differences.
Now, and finally, how about those who might think that the issue of ADR might contribute to some level of impunity?
In the normal Judeo-Western system of application of matters between parties in a civil matter, you have the defendant and the plaintiff, or the plaintiff and the defendant. In ADR, you don't have a plaintiff, you don't have a defendant, you have parties. And so there will not be impunity, except that there will not be the temptation to lie to get judgment. Perjury might be something which will reduce, because you're looking at the other party in a dispute as a defendant or a plaintiff, you might want to win a case. In ADR, both parties win. So the propensity or the temptation to engage in unwarranted activities, unwarranted by law that is, to win a case might be done away with. In the African traditional sense, ADR has been with us, and I think that if we go back to ADR, we should be able to live together in harmony in our communities without necessarily looking at each other as enemies.
Right, so that was Alhaji Inusa Fuseni giving us his thoughts on the ADR that's been recommended by the Chief Justice. Now, let's take a look at this particular issue once again, and we've been joined on the phone lines by Martin Pebu. He's a legal practitioner, and we'll be picking his thoughts as well on this. Now, good afternoon, sir. Many thanks for joining us on TV3.
Good afternoon.
All right. Now, what do you make of the suggestion by the Chief Justice to make ADR mandatory for all civil cases, and of course the subsequent backing of this?
Yes, it's a laudable cause, very laudable. You know, as it works, currently we are using ADR a lot. I mean, a lot of the court cases we're using ADR to resolve, but there are also a lot more where ADR can help, but we currently don't use. So it means that the Chief Justice is asking for us to scale it up. And I find that that is a very innovative approach, because there are some of the cases you would find that the parties are willing to settle, but sometimes there are issues of ego. Sometimes where one feels that if I initiate ADR, then it makes it look like my case is weak, you know, and so many other barriers. But where ADR is compulsory, as lawyers would inform our clients that, look, it's compulsory, so it's not because your case is weak, okay? That's why you are asking for ADR, but it's compulsory. So
Okay.
I think it would help us immensely.
Right. Now, what would you say to those who might think that making it mandatory could be a way of gagging people who generally feel their cases must strictly be tried?
Okay, this is what happens. When we say ADR will be made mandatory, it doesn't mean that ADR will resolve all those cases. No. Currently, what we do is that it's mandatory for you to go through ADR. If at the end of it, the one party is not satisfied, he has the right to ask for the case to be tried in an adversarial manner. That's the one that you see them entering the box.
Yeah.
So currently, we have what we call in the commercial court pre-trial settlement conference. He says, so at the pre-trial, they have up to 2 months for the parties to try to settle. If it doesn't work, after the 2 months, then the parties go back to the court and they even change the judge. The first judge who was doing the ADR doesn't conduct the substantive trial.
Okay.
So if at the end of the 2 months or after some further extension it doesn't work, the parties go back to a different courtroom, that a different judge takes over the case, and then a proper trial is conducted. So that's what we do. It's the same in the district court.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Lawyer Martin Pebu, who was picking his thoughts on the suggestion by the Chief Justice to make ADR mandatory for civil cases. Now, let's move away from that and do some other stories where President Akufo-Addo has appointed 3 persons to act as chief executives and 10 others as deputy chief executives for 3 of the development authorities created by his government to advance the development agenda of the country. Now, IT professional Samuel Atamensa will be acting chief executive for the Coastal Development Authority, while Jerry Ahmed Shaib, Bob Charles Agbonyon To, and Mona Gertrude Faye and Emmanuel Framenim have been appointed as acting deputy chief executives. Now, for the Middle Belt Development Authority, Joe Dankwa, an administrator, has been appointed the acting chief executive, with Joyce Opoku-Boateng, Vincent Frimpong Menu, and Alexander Ferka as acting deputies. Alhaji Abdel Majid Haroun, an agricultural economist, will head the Northern Development Authority in an acting capacity, with Laraba Zurira Abudu, Osmani Al and Stephen Yuru Engman have been named as acting deputies as well. Right, now we'll have Professor Justice Baole. Now, he's a public management expert and he joins me via Skype. Good afternoon, sir. Many thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. Now, so we have 3 CEOs with as many as 10 deputies. Is this a value for money?
Well, I am not too sure, but if the president has an agenda, he definitely has to get people who would have to prosecute that agenda. And so you would imagine that once the development authorities were established, we were going to have people getting appointed to fill the various positions. I was rather surprised to see that we have 3 and 4 deputies for these authorities. But I get a sense that the president is adopting the UK model, where you have, for example, the Northern Development Authority would have a number of units or would have a number of sectors, and you would want deputies to be in charge of each of the sectors that may be important to realize. And so I guess that is the strategy that the president has. What is the case that we usually have difficulties with is the problem where already our public sector is bloated, and the government consistently gets us to understand that they would have to deal with the public sector wage bill. Now, if that is the case, then sometimes you get conflicting signals when we get a lot more people being appointed. But be it as it may, I think that we have no choice but to get people to be appointed. What I would want to see, for example, in an attempt to reduce the numbers of people in the public sector whilst we create more organizations,
right,
is to see that we have people transferred, for example. So for the political appointees, that's fine, but the civil servants, the technical people who will be working in these development authorities, I'm waiting to see that we would have a decongestion of the system. So we move people rather than appoint new people altogether to take positions in these development authorities.
Now, looking at the structure of these 3 development authorities, will you say their work warrants such a high number of human resource?
To be honest with you, as I say, I'm surprised that we are getting too many deputies. Yeah. But I don't know exactly what the various units or frameworks would be. I haven't done a recent review of these. And so I am surprised to see so many CEOs.
Now,
I mean, deputy CEOs.
Now, Prof, would you disagree with those who suggest that the president is sort of forming a family and friends government, considering the fact that he already has 110 ministerial and deputies and portfolios? This has already attracted criticism. There have been issues regarding the fact that he might be creating jobs for the boys. And now this, what's your take?
Well, I'm sure the president knows that people are critical, and he has consistently said that we should judge him at the end of the day. But in public service, it's difficult for us to say we want to wait till the end and judge you, because to be honest, I've not seen the value of the 110 ministers that have been appointed so far. Those that are working are just a handful. Many of them we can't hear, we can't see, we can't feel. Exactly why we needed 110 in the first place, and if anybody was making any argument, I would want to see whether or not we would have done less. In other words, we would have achieved less if we had a limited number or a number not up to 110. So these are questions that we keep asking as public administrators. But the truth is that I want us to move away from the discussion about family and friends, business, and because people will have to be appointed anyway, and in this country, one person or the other is connected to one person or the other. Okay. But I want us to evaluate what the people bring on board rather than critique it based on family and friend philosophy.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. We've been speaking with Professor Justice Boakye. Now, let's move away from that to a trending issue in this country. And the Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection has condemned actress Moesha Budong's sweeping and outrageous comments, which negatively portrayed Ghanaian women to the world. Now, Moesha told CNN in an interview that in Ghana, our economy is such a way that you need someone to take care of you. You can't make enough money as a woman here, because even when you want to get an apartment in Ghana, they take 2 years advance. And I just started working. Where will I get money to pay? Now, the comments that have widely been criticized by both men and women have also received some moderate support that she spoke the truth, as in the reality on the ground. But Madam Otiko Afisa Jaba, Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, in a statement posted on the ministry's Facebook page, disassociated itself, Ghanaian women, from the comments. Now, in the face of the giant strides that women from all walks of life in Ghana are making to assert their independence and rediscover their pride and assert their self-esteem, the sweeping generalizations made by Ms. Moesha on the international primetime television have invariably done great damage to the Ghanaian womanhood, apart from casting Ghanaian men as predatory, uncaring and rapacious. Now, on behalf of Ghanaian women and men, the ministry condemns Moesha's statement, and in particular her generalizations, which are unjustified, the minister said. Now, so in case you have not yet seen this video that has definitely gone viral, here are excerpts of that interview she granted to CNN.
Ghana is like our economy is just such in a way that you just need someone to take care of you.
Why? Because you can't make enough money?
You can't make enough money.
As a woman here?
As a woman here. Because even when you want to get an apartment, in Ghana, you pay 2 years in advance. Wow. And I just started working. Where will I get money to pay for an apartment for 2 years?
Are you basically telling me that you're having sex with this guy, essentially To pay your rent?
Because he can afford to take care of you. But he takes care of me, my financial stuff, my apartment, my car, my rent, everything.
And Christiana, the same for you?
Well, I'm not dating a married man.
So you're dating a single man?
Yes.
Who nonetheless can take care of you. And what does he ask of you for that? What do you have to do for him?
Like to have time for him, make sure you give him good food, and then when he wants to have fun, you make sure you're ready.
What does your man expect of you?
He expects me to be loyal and just to date him only. And give him sex when he wants. Yeah.
And what if you said no one day? He turns up at your house and you got a headache. What does he say?
You can't say no. You have to give him what he wants.
And what if you don't want it that day?
That means he's going to think you're cheating on him.
Holy cow.
Yes, he's going to think you're cheating on him.
And does your man have more mistresses?
Yes.
Well, so that was the excerpt of the video that has gone viral and got everybody talking, especially on social media. Now, joining me in the studio is the Executive Director of the Human Rights in Education, Mr. Clement Kadogbe. Mr. Clement Kadogbe. Thank you very much for joining us on Midday Live on TV3.
Welcome.
All right. Now, the Gender Ministry has disassociated itself from Moesha. The public, in fact, a cross-section of the public, a majority have done the same, especially women, saying that that generalization does not apply to them. However, she raised some key concerns in that interview. She raised issues of cost of living, rent advance, in a lot of other things. Does she have a case, regardless of how she probably presented it?
Well, thank you and good afternoon to your cherished viewers. The statement coming from the Gender Ministry is coming at the right time. Yesterday, late yesterday night, I saw a statement purported to be coming from Moesha, apologizing to the general public. There is no doubt that she made some sweeping generalizations which does not reflect the majority, what majority of women in Ghana do. So that apology is coming at the right time. But then she made certain statements or certain assertions which we need to take a look at. What does our Rent Act says? You cannot charge more than 6 months rent. But we have, landlords charging 2 years, even 3 years. Yeah. The rents are so high. So this is something we need to take a look at. We have very beautiful laws, but the enforcement is always a problem. Is the Rent Control Office even resourced well enough to go around to monitor these things? I don't think so. So even though her statement is unfortunate, we need to take a look at some of the issues she's raising. Rent is definitely high. We should enforce the law. 6 months and nothing more than that.
Now, what would you say to those who might agree that, yes, you know, the way she said everything was wrong, but then there seems to be a focus on her rather than the fact that whatever it is that she's doing or whatever it is that women like her are doing, they're not doing it alone. There is a system that enables that practice.
Okay, so we must also establish this fact that, one, there are some people who are doing what she's doing. It's a personal choice they have made. It undoubtedly there are people doing that. Maybe because of the kind of lifestyle they live, they need extra money to be able to continue to. But that does not negate the fact that we have very hardworking women, single mothers who are breaking their back to put food on the table of their children, and so many other women who we should celebrate. But then the backlash is coming because she seems to be using her personal preference or choice to generalize as though that is what pertains in the country. I admitted earlier that we have some people who have chosen to go that way, but it probably would be just a fraction of the women in the country. Many of the women they are working very hard too. So, well, a personal choice which she seems to generalize for all the people, all the hardworking women in the country, which is bringing the backlash.
Right. Now, with the enabling environment that have also been cited in this particular outrage, there has been the fact that the society is imbalanced, and this is something that we know when it comes to gender balance in terms of the distribution of resources that has leaned towards the male population for a long time as opposed to the female population, which then might create the situation where in order for a woman to succeed to a certain level, they might at a point in time in their life have to resort or be faced with the question of having to trade their sexual favors for, favors or financial stability.
There is no doubt that women in Ghana generally have been marginalized in terms of access to resources vis-a-vis their male counterparts. But we would also realize that over the years there has been some deliberate attempts on the part of government, civil society to kind of bridge this gap. So we should look at that and sort of try to hit more on that aspect. There are several deliberate policies which are aimed at making the Ghanaian woman feel that she's capable of achieving her aspirations and goals and whatever. So let's look more at that and not try to. But again, if there is no one who is interested in buying, you will not be selling.
Exactly. Supply
so
and demand,
demand and supply.
Yeah.
So we should also look at that and generally try to help people understand that you don't necessarily have to trade sex for money or to get a sponsor before you can make a living.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I've been speaking with Clement Kadobe. He is the Executive Director of Human Rights Education Africa. Now, let's move away from that and do some other stories. Now, if he's unable to raise $25,000 within the next few days, it's sure death for 36-year-old native of Cape Coast, Thomas Khan. Thomas is suffering from an acute kidney failure and urgently needs a transplant to survive. But his survival will depend on the philanthropy of many like you.
Thomas, like many, discovered he had kidney failure after a wrong diagnosis.
The whole thing started like malaria sort of. So I fell sick and I was admitted at the hospital, and I was wondering what kind of malaria that they keep treating and it wasn't going.
He has lived with kidney failure for the last 5 years and presently survives on the expensive procedure of dialysis 3 times a week. However, doctors say he urgently requires a kidney transplant. Maintaining a dry weight of 65 kg is key to improving his health. He has to shed some 5 kg of fluid, but Khan's kidneys won't allow him.
We raised something, but it wasn't able to undertake the transplant. So those monies were used by Thomas Khan on the dialysis. And remember, the dialysis, you have to come, I think, thrice every week.
Thomas now requires help to enable him undergo a kidney transplant in India. The 2004 year group of the Mfansipim school have been able to raise $10,000 for Khan's transplant. They have appealed to other year groups to help raise the $25,000 needed.
It's always a wonderful feeling to be in Mfansipim. Whether you leave or not, you're still part of the family. When one of us is hurt, we are all hurt. So as our brother Thomas Khan is in this crisis, that is a challenge with his kidneys, both kidneys, and we are seeking to give him a transplant. We're just calling on the whole body, that's the Mobile National Fraternity, to come together to assist us raise these funds for Thomas to get his transplant.
Media General is encouraging the public to assist raise $25,000 for a kidney transplant to help Khan live life and achieve his dreams and aspirations. Please pay your donations into the TV3 Social Support Fund account number 6010603927 at any Zenith Bank branch. You can also donate on mobile money number 0245221555 or at the TV3 premises at Kanda in Accra.
As we always say, no amount is too small. Please help save Thomas Khan's life. We'll be right back with more news updates on Midday Live on TV3. Stay with us. Welcome back to Midday Live. Don't forget that we're streaming worldwide on 3news.com as well as our Facebook page and also live on DSTV channel 279. Let's do some more stories. And the Executive Secretary of the National Labour Commission, Ofosu Asamoah, has warned he will advise government to suspend salaries of worker groups like NAGRAT for flouting the Labour Act 651. The Executive Secretary described as bad faith the earlier intention by the National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, to embark on a nationwide strike.
The Executive Secretary of Ofosu Asamoah was reacting to the earlier decision by NAGRAT to declare a nationwide strike. The association was demanding its 5 years unpaid salary arrears amounting to 50 million cedis. Currently, government has already released 40 million cedis to pay them, while the rest will be paid by May 6. Although NAGRAT has suspended the strike, the National Labour Commission says the intention to strike was unfair. According to the Commission, NAGRAT should have respected the dictates of the Labour Act 651. The Executive Secretary of the Commission, Ofosu Asamoah, noted leadership of NAGRAT acted in bad faith.
That strike was not declared in good faith at all. I thank God that it did not last beyond 5 days. Yes, because the government or the ministry delivered on its word. So, I hope it doesn't happen again.
He has pleaded strong commitment to advise government suspend salaries of such worker groups which flout the Labour Act.
If you declare a strike and the strike is illegal, you shouldn't be paid within the period which you stay home. That is what the government should do. Yes, we will advise. Because the government too had defaulted over the years. I mean, when people work, they should be paid. Not only be paid, but on time.
Already, some experts have accused the leadership of NAGRAT for suspending the strike instead of a call-off. But its president, Nj Kabonu, is of the view the suspension is in the right direction.
If we use the word call-off and we don't see commitment, we definitely are not going to rest on our hours. Definitely we'll have to rise and raise our voice and use whatever means appropriate at an appropriate time to ensure that we get what belongs to us.
He praised government for its commitment to settling the arrears.
They now have a semblance of hope that their monies will be paid. I have countless text messages indicating that now we believe that if we maintain the momentum, our monies will be paid. And that is what is most important.
Meanwhile, the NLC has pleaded with unions to always call off their strike instead of suspending it.
Well, let's get onto the phone lines and speak with Labour expert Ben Arthur. Good afternoon. Many thanks for joining us on Midday Live.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all your cherished viewers.
All right. Now, what do you make of the position of the National Labour Commission to suspend salaries of labour unions that flout the Labour Act?
I think it's in the right direction. Because if you look at how much we lose as a nation to illegal strikes, and you look at the days lost, the productivity implications, definitely it is one of the good steps to take. But we must always make sure that once we are taking some of these steps, we do not have to see government as complicit in the matter. Because from my research work that I've done for the past 10 years on strike, you realize that sometimes some of the strikes go beyond 5 days. Some of the strikes, in fact, I could give you figures that almost 37% of all public sector strikes go beyond 6 days. So if you're looking at such huge numbers and those involved in strikes being more than 4.7 million people over a period of 10 years, then you know that we are losing a lot of money as a country. But often, you realize that for every strike, you might have government, being complicit somewhere or the other. That there's one reason why there is a strike, and government somehow admits that they are at fault. So in some of these public sector strikes, government has not been able to put its feet down to enforce the law. But once we have an executive secretary who himself is a lawyer, understands the law, and is ready to apply it, I think it will help in sanitizing the system.
Now,
but there's one thing that I should be quick in adding, my dear.
Okay.
That whilst we seek to enforce the law, we must also try and amend a portion of the law that does not make it pragmatic for getting dispute resolved as far as essential services sectors are concerned. When I talk about essential services sector, I'm referring to the transportation sector, the social services and health sectors, and those in petrochemical industry, blah, blah, blah. So we need to also look at it holistically.
Now, very briefly before I let you go, what would you say to those who might be saying that this could be a way of restraining labor unions from exercising their rights to strike?
No, it is not a restraining factor at all.
Okay.
For the non-essential service sector, the law allows them to go on strike and basically to press home your demand.
Okay.
But there is a channel that you must pass through in order to have the legal strike. So if a strike happens to be illegal, then the law must be enforced. And it's not just withholding their pay. I think the National Labour Commission and the authorities must go beyond just withholding the pay. Any other loss that is incurred by the employer, it is recoverable from those who embark on the strike.
All right.
That is how harsh the law is.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We've been speaking with Ben Arthur, a labor expert. Now, let's move away from that and now do some business stories. And we start off from the banking sector. And the banking consultant, Dr. Richmond Etiahene, has cautioned the Bank of Ghana not to force banks into measures simply because they cannot raise the new minimum capital requirement of 400 million Ghana cedis by December 31, 2018. He noted there are different risk complexities, systems and processes of each bank that could present stumbling blocks after a measure is effected.
The Council of State has advised indigenous banks who cannot meet new minimum capital requirement by the central bank to consider merging with other banks. However, a banking consultant, Dr. Richmond Etiahene, is cautioning if care is not taken, a measure could be disastrous. He indicated if a measure goes well, the new company should appreciate in value as investors anticipate synergies to be actualized, creating cost savings and possibly increased revenue for the new entity.
If you merge and your asset base go up, your profitability goes up by say 20%, then we can say that 2 + 2 is 5. That is what they call synergistic effect. And before you talk about mergers or acquisition or takeovers, one would have to understand everybody's concept, business model. Some of the business models cannot fit into other business models.
Dr. Richmond Etiahene noted the different risk complexities must be considered in terms of measures as well as studying the behavioral patterns of each potential partner.
Let's assume I am a mortgage bank and you tell me to go and take up an SME. The risk complexities are different. So when we want to talk about measures, we should take our time and see how best we can merge the do's and the don'ts, and before we talk about measures. Measures cannot be pushed on. Nigerians tried the measures in 2004. In the end, they had some of the banks failed woefully.
Now, the Bank of Ghana has put in motion a number of steps aimed at sanitizing the banking sector. The upward adjustment of the minimum capital requirement is one of such steps. But what does this mean to the ordinary Ghanaian? The Bank of Ghana has set the minimum capital requirement at 400 million Ghana cedis. Now, this is to take effect by the end of December 2018. Now, defaulting banks who are not able to meet this requirement would or might be required to fold up. But we've hit the streets to find out exactly how much the average Ghanaian knows and understands about recapitalization.
I've not heard anything about it though. My mind is not in on those things yet.
You must do the business well, so the business must be raised. So Bank of Ghana always know his right. So always must be teaching those people, because when they didn't coach them well, they are always be failed.
Actually, I'm not using. I don't have any account from the Bank of Ghana, so I don't know anything about Bank of Ghana.
The minimum capital requirement means that the amount that you need to be able to run a bank here in Ghana. So it has to be something that is reasonable, so that you don't easily go into liquidization where you have to cut off the banking sector. And I mean, people lose a lot of cash. People are insecure. They're not able to trust the bank enough to save their monies there.
While trying to get people to talk about something that they obviously didn't really understand was quite difficult as pulling teeth. And at least maybe gives you an idea of how much people actually understand when it comes to the minimal capital requirement or recapitalization in general. It was very, very difficult to have people admit on camera that they did not understand, especially since it's been a trending issue for the last few months, considering what has transpired in the banking sector. Solace Rose Courting, TV3, Accra.
All right, don't forget that you can always get interactive with us via social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, as well as Twitter. And we're also live on DSTV channel 279. Midday Live continues after this. For Sulabi, it's now time for some international news. And international news this afternoon, the US, UK and France have bombed multiple government targets in Syria in an early morning operation targeting alleged chemical weapon sites. The strikes were in response to a suspected chemical attack on the Syrian town of Douma last week. Now, explosions hit the capital, Damascus, as well as 2 locations near the city of Homs, the Pentagon said. Russia's ambassador to the U.S. responded by saying the attack on its ally will not be left without consequences. The nations of Britain, France, and the United States of America have marshaled their righteous power against barbarism and brutality, U.S. President Donald Trump said in an address from the White House at about 2100 local time. The purpose of our actions tonight is to establish a strong deterrent against the production, the spread, and use of chemical weapons, he said. The wave of strikes is the most significant attack against President Bashar al-Assad's government by Western powers in 7 years of serious civil war. And now to some entertainment news.
Entertainment news is brought to you by
All right, so the clock for the 19th VGMA is ticking and ticking fast. And the TV3 Entertainment visited the Accra International Conference Center and showed the setup for the event is underway. Now, the Communications Director for the VGMA board, Niaite Hammond, walked us through the state of preparedness for the much-awaited awards night.
My rap calling, telling me that I'm falling. Spirits up in the morning, positive that I'm all in. Can't get under my skin, can't get sentimental, my friend. I was having fun a week ago, made this instrumental my 10.
Here with me now is the director of production, Niaite Hammond. What is the situation right now at the conference center?
Setup is ongoing. We've been here since Monday, leaving here almost 2-3 a.m. every night or every midnight, and so far it's been good. I mean, today we're starting full dress rehearsals today, so we're getting ready.
We're getting ready. So in a bit of getting ready, I see a lot of trusses, a lot of sound speakers, and all of that. I mean, what is the ambience going to look like?
You know, the ambience is almost every time exciting and revealing. I mean, this year is not going to be any different. We're going to put up something worth experiencing. You know, I don't need to speak a lot. Patrons will come and experience it.
You're starting your dress rehearsal tonight. Does that mean we have the foreign acts already in town?
Yes, the foreign acts will be arriving, and so everybody should be expecting them alongside our artists that we are celebrating come tomorrow. You know, so it's going to be a night, a lovely night. It's going to be an exciting night, and trust me, if you're not at a venue, then you should be sitting next to your TV, because TV3 will definitely bring everything to your doorstep.
We're gonna crank it up, turn it up, and then light it.
And now, in a few hours, the 19th Vodafone Ghana Music Awards will kickstart, and we're wondering how organizers are prepared for this event. How ready are they? Let's find out what exactly is going on right now at the Accra International Conference Center.
Just seeing my name among the nominees, like it's like it means so much to me. Yeah, so I'm grateful.
Some few hours to go. How ready are you two?
Well, that's our middle name.
Yes.
We're ready.
We're born ready.
We've been ready since forever. We're born ready.
You know, Vodafone's tagline is the future is exciting. Are you ready? Yeah. We are ready.
So we'll be ready.
Charlie.
It's Ghana Music's biggest night. It's going to be a party. We're going to make it fun. We're going to make sure that it's exceptional, it's memorable, so that, well, next year will be, you know, if you will, put it at the apogee. So that's...
Well, if that little taste is anything at all to go by, we definitely have a lot to look forward to tonight. And don't forget that you can catch all the live action right here on TV3. And that's how we wrap up Midday Live. My name is Solis Rose Porter. We've been live on DSTV channel 279. Also interactive with you on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram. Always tune in to TV3 for more news updates.